Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and what will be a pretty involved video today. This time we're going to be talking about every weapon and what would be your best choice to run instead of, say, the classic Artian meta. Artian is no doubt amazing. We're going to explain why that's the case so we can really explain how we're judging what to run instead. But I would say a lot of us think that Artian weapons are a bit bland to look at now. But what can you run instead of Artian that's actually going to be a solid option? An important aspect of the Artian weapons, though, is that their peak, their best setups, those are the reasons they're meta. When we're looking at something like this, a perfectly rolled Artian reinforcement, a lot of people are maybe going to have 2 or 3 of the 5 that you're actually aiming for. Josh was telling me that the odds are actually horrible when you stop and consider them. To get the perfect 5 out of 5, considering you might roll 1 of 4 things per line, it's roughly 0.1%. This might not be something you're willing to chase for every weapon you craft every time. And in that context, the regular monster weapons suddenly look a lot better by comparison, so it's something to think about. As we get into how we actually judge this, I'd like to thank both Cotton and Josh for the help on this. Obviously 14 weapons is a lot to consider, and thankfully we do have a bit of a spread understanding of them, thanks to there being 3 of us, especially Josh as usual, who was helping me consider the math in particular. So, how can we work this out? For most of the weapons, you've got multiple things to consider. You've got the raw, the affinity, and then if it's relevant, do you have status or element? Some weapons also have extra details you have to think about, like the shelling type and power types of something like Gunlance. Not to mention the decoration slots, which in often cases it's like a 3, 2, and a 1 for your crafted monster weapons, compared to the 3, 3, 3 of an Artian weapon, which is a big deal. Thankfully, as you can see, these crafted monster weapons come with their own equipment skills, so this weapon in this case has 3 levels of critical element. If this is a really impactful relevant skill you'd normally use a decoration for anyway, it could be a saving grace, and that's what we'll talk about as we go. The thing is, for a proper Artian weapon, if you're going, say, raw, you're able to get the high raw with the perfect rolls while also benefiting from a status for essentially free. You'd expect one of these statuses, whether it's paralysis, blast, or in some cases sleep, to come at a cost, but really it's just a free added benefit. Meanwhile, for like an element weapon, you reach such comically high element that no crafted monster weapon competes with it. This is in the context again of perfect rolls. And those perfect rolls are pretty commonly known, right? In element meta, you're looking for 4 element boosts and probably a sharpness boost. Whereas in raw meta, you're looking for 4 attack boosts and probably a sharpness boost. In both cases, you're likely going to be going for the attack infusion over affinity because we can get so much affinity from our gear set. But as you can see, just standing here, if you get the perfect rolls for a raw, that gives you a base raw of 225. And that's going to come with white sharpness, which is a 32% damage increase. Even with 0 affinity boosts or reinforcements, the base affinity you get from Artian weapons is also 5%. So even without crit boost, that's a 1.25% damage increase. It's another selling point. These kind of details are just why it's so obvious that Artian weapons are so good. And it's why running 3 attack boost and 4 attack reinforcements for raw, or maybe 4 element reinforcements for element, it quickly became a very well-known meta in even the opening days of endgame. That's why you'll have seen us suggest it and run it for so many of the builds that we've made and covered on the channel since launch. Almost everyone knows that it's meta and has been for some time. So what would a non-Artian weapon need to compete with an Artian weapon? Well, for a raw focused one, it'd have to compete with 225 base raw, the white sharpness, 5% affinity at a minimum, and then the incredible decoration slots that provides the skills you need. Here's the math that will help us kind of assess that. So we have 225 base raw, you got the 32% damage increase from white sharpness, and then like we said, the 1.25% increase from even 0 crit boost on the 5% affinity you have. So that would bring us to 301 as an effective raw that you gotta compete with these crafted monster weapons. But again, that's all in the context of a perfect roll in the first place. If you don't have the perfect roll, well then again, the monster weapons are more competitive. Let's start this list then with 2 weapons that actually have best options. They're 100% crafted monster weapons, not Artian at all. And we're going to start with probably the most well-known one, the Gunlance here, because it's probably pretty damn well known that the Guardian arkveld version of Gunlance is the thing you've seen in all the speedruns. In this case, the shelling is going to be a major aspect of your output. The way shelling damage works is different to normal weapon use, which means even though this weapon doesn't have white sharpness, it doesn't really matter because it's not modifying that damage. Not only that, but shelling won't crit, so the minus affinity of this weapon doesn't matter either. As a Gunlance, it provides the wide shelling type, which has been outperforming long and normal. And not only that, it also has the power type as slightly strong, which is the best you're going to aim for since it increases the damage of your shelling. Now it does come with 2 levels of guard, which isn't overly relevant, but it is useful. But obviously it's also one of the few crafted monster weapons that has 2 3-level slots to work with compared to like a 3-2-1 setup. This then allows you to fit key skills like artillery and of course load shells. So yeah, the Guardian Arkveld version of the Gunlance, pretty damn well known as a meta weapon that's actually not Artian at all. So let's move on to the other 100% non-Artian meta weapon, and that is for Hunting Horn. Although you could actually argue for maybe 3 different crafted hunting horns, because they all have these clear, distinct uses. This is because of what we're looking at here, the melodies that are attached to the weapon. Based on what weapon you're holding, you get different melody options. Some of these are particularly good, like take a look at this one, Affinity Up. And this is important because as Cotton was explaining to me, the downsides of swapping off a hunting horn after you play the buff melodies, these don't impact a main hunting horn player. If you did a hunting horn melody as a buff of some kind and swapped to a different weapon like longsword or whatever, those buffs would run out much quicker. But if you swap from one hunting horn to another, it's like you never swapped at all. You keep the buffs for the full duration. This is why one of the meta picks you're going to go for is actually the gore magala hunting horn. Not only does it look really cool, but it also has incredible DPS buffs in the form of its melodies. Affinity up, like we said, but also say the benefits of earplugs at large. So you apply these buffs, then swap to the main hunting horn you're actually using for combat. But what would you actually use to fight? It depends on the context. You'll have seen a lot of speedrunners using exactly this hunting horn. Regular arkveld is an incredible pick, thanks to its equipment skills, and very importantly, the melodies that it has. The other option is actually going towards Rathian. Rathian's still on the table because it serves as a fantastic support style hunting horn for your multiplayer play. If you're trying to play that supportive style, it's actually a top pick. You've got health recovery and recovery speed in large, melody of life, and even for your echo bubbles, health regen. Not to mention attack up large, which is really nice for the party. But if we take a look at the max upgraded one, 200 attack, 15% affinity, you got status in poison, it comes with poison duration up, which is helpful for that purpose, and yeah, white sharpness. So by no means is it a bad pick, especially if you're trying to support others in multiplayer. But yes, the regular arkveld hunting horn is the meta pick for DPS, and you'll be seeing it in the speedruns. You've got 3-2-1 decorations, which isn't amazing, but on it you have Slugger and Horn Maestro. Very nice to just have slapped in there for free. We have the base roll of 210, which is solid, white sharpness, and that white sharpness can be maintained thanks to that melody, Restore Sharpness, allowing you to not really worry about decorating for sharpness purpose. For damage and sticking to your DPS, you've got Resounding Melody, which to my understanding is the best damage melody, and Extend All melodies as well, which means the buffs we got from say the gore, they last longer as you're using this arkveld version. So not only does Hunting Horn get to dodge Artian weapons for its meta pick, but they also get the fun of the secondary buffing Hunting Horn as a concept on top. But now we move to the one kind of side grade topic that I want to talk about, which is bow. Josh was explaining this one to me, as Guardian dahaad here is actually the best for Dragon Pierce as a meta option. It kind of is a one-size-fits-all bow, with really high raw as you can see, at the cost of that affinity. Now based on the weapon that you have, that'll affect the coating options you have. So in this case, we have close range coating. And if you were thinking about Artian, say fire and water Artian, those are ones that are also going to have close range coating and are picked for that reason. So for a focus on Dragon Pierce, this Guardian dahaad is a worthy option. And thanks to the fact that it's raw, it kind of can be a one size fits all. Josh was telling me though that if you're after Rathalos, Guardian Rathalos, Rathian and Gravios, normal arkveld would actually be a great option. Arguably better than a perfect Artian for specifically those 4. Whereas instead of Dragon, we'd be looking at Ice, the Blangonga bow is incredible for that purpose against specifically Zuwu. Again, better than Artian in that specific case. Now obviously, these are really specific details that we have in the build videos. And as things get a bit worse from here on, I'll be sticking to one focus where possible. But for a one-size-fits-all concept, the Guardian dahaad for bow is your Dragon Pierce pick, and is a meta-worthy option. But now we come to the best options that we have. In many cases, that's going to be some worthy choices to think about, and in some, it's just going to be the best of a bad list. I'll be going into more detail where possible here, but some are going to be pretty straightforward. Starting with Greatsword then. Normal arkveld, not the Guardian version, is going to be your best all-round non-Artian Greatsword. Josh was telling me that Guardian dahaad would actually be great for the crit draw playstyle, but for a more normal gameplay, it's this one. So let's compare math to kind of acknowledge that. Again, a perfect Artian, as we talked about before, would be 301 effective raw that we got to compare to. So normal arkveld here has a raw of 220, and again it has white sharpness, so 32% damage increase. That's more like 290 effective raw. We are benefiting from 500 dragon on top. Also, it's worth noting that it has 3 levels of focus just built into it, which is certainly a nice bonus that you'd normally be putting one of the 3 slots in your deco economy into. So that's a pretty big selling point. Technically, you'd need 3 attack reinforce rolls for an Artian weapon to be better than this. So if you don't have that yet, well, actually you should be running this instead. But achieving a 3 out of 5 ideal roll Artian at this point should be pretty reasonable. Next up, we have longsword, which isn't great because, man, is the Artian weapon so good in this case. What we'd recommend on this one is more than likely gore magala for longsword. It's solid because, you know, for some weapons, gore's either going to give you 200 base raw or 210, alongside 20% affinity, which is very nice. Now, longsword, thankfully, as you can see, is in the 210 raw category, and with that, you get some nice chunky white sharpness, which will actually push it over arkveld's effective raw by comparison. The problem is that we have terrible built-in equipment skills for this weapon. Critical element, it's not relevant at all. If we look at, say, the arkveld longsword by comparison, that's focus, also not relevant. So it's very hard to go against the Artian meta, which is simply so much better by comparison. But yeah, for your best picks, arkveld's a worthy consideration, gore is arguably better. But I do want to highlight Lalabarina just quickly. It comes with 200 raw, so down from 210. Still 15% affinity. But your paralysis weapons when it comes to monster crafting, it's actually insane. 250 paralysis. How much do we have on the Artian? Only 100. So there is something to be said for Lalabarinas, because you'll be proccing more paralysis by a significant amount throughout the early stage of the fight, which leads to more DPS, right? So it's something that I should at least mention here. Next up then, we have SNS, which is going to be pretty straightforward. For this one, we go for the Ajarican SNS, which is a relief because damn does it look good. Now technically, this has 284 effective raw, with its white sharpness, 10% affinity, and the 210 attack, which when compared to regular arkveld, this one actually has an effective raw of about 290. But there's an important difference here for more meta gameplay. This comes with guard, and obviously doesn't benefit from status. The Ajarican SNS by comparison comes with a hefty 180 blast that you'll be proccing many times, even early in a fight multiple times. And it also comes with a built-in 3 levels of offensive guard, which is absolutely a meta skill for SNS, massively helping with the decoration economy, where say regular arkveld would struggle a lot more. So again, it's something that really matters here. The inbuilt skills, when they're meta and relevant, it has a big impact on their decorations. The few weapons that let you have the same skills you'd be decorating for with an Artian, it's a huge advantage for the weapon. So that's why we think you should go Ajarican and not arkveld in this case. Alright, next up we have dual blades. And this one, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, it's not amazing. You probably shouldn't be running dual blades in raw with a crafted monster weapon. We can get away with it though when it comes to Artian thanks to the benefits of status that we're able to proc so easily. As we talked about in the recent video, you're also able to run 2 weapons, right? So you could be running a blast version of the raw status Artian dual blades, proccing this quite a few times until the resistance builds up, and then mid-hunt, mid-fight, swap to paralysis instead, benefiting from that. It's a really cool concept. You cannot do something remotely as effective as that with raw monster crafted dual blades. So you should go with element because that's kind of what dual blades is meant to be. The problem there is that element's not amazing with the hit zones in this base version of the game for a lot of the monsters we're fighting, but there is some pros. The element can reach pretty high numbers for some of these, especially in particular dahaad's 300 ice. With my perfectly rolled fire Artian weapons by comparison, that has 350 element. Obviously better, but do you have a perfect roll on your dual blades? Especially when you gotta make 5 of them. Meanwhile, it's a lot easier to craft the specific monster ones. So especially for ice, something like dahaad's ice dual blades is actually a great pick. In this case, you're also getting 3 levels of focus, which is gonna help you build up your demon gauge really quick, which is an awesome detail. For fire, we like look at the Rathalos dual blades. As you can see, it comes with 3 critical boost, which is really nice. though only 200 fire. For water, we have the guild or master sabers here. Again, 200 element on this one, and again, the focus skills. For thunder, we have the Anjanath Fulgur. Unfortunately, it has critical element on it. It's just not been that effective as an offensive skill so far in this launch version. Still, it has 210 base roll, which is something, 15% affinity, and you need to work in some sharpness to get to white sharpness with handicraft. For dragon, we'd go regular arkveld though, so slightly higher on the attack. You got that white sharpness, 200 dragon, and again, the focus skill. Ultimately, I don't like recommending these generally though, because the Artian just outweighs them so much. With this properly set up dragon pair of Artian dual blades with 205 raw, so that's more than some of the ones we just looked at, or 5 less in some cases, but then 350 element, which is either 100 or 150 more than some of the ones we just looked at, and white sharpness, and the 3 decoration slots. They just don't compete. So I do hope that dual blades get some serious love in Update 1 with some of the new weapons we can look at. Next up then we have hammer, which is kind of straightforward by comparison. This one is the binder mace or the jail hammer, associated of course with Lalabarina and Nerzilla. It's the paralysis hammer with 220 raw, no negative affinity, and the whopping 250 paralysis. What's pretty cool about this is the fact that you're able to trigger paralysis very easily with this weapon multiple times. And for hammer, that's going to create nice openings for maybe a big bang combo or at least a combo into a mighty charge, leading to KOs and continuous DPS. There's also some benefits of the skill of Stamina Thief, just to make the fight easier, and not to mention that it's got white sharpness and 2 level 3 decoration slots, which is a big deal too. So this is the top pick for general use for sure here, but again, Artian is super good. Alright, it's time to talk about Lance. For this one, we got 2 that we're quite interested looking at, though I do kind of have a conclusion. We have the regular Arkveld Lance, and we have the Guardian Rathalos Lance. For meta lance setups based on the fastest lance speed runs I've been watching, which of course use Artian weapons, you see a lot of crit boost, offensive guard, and of course handicraft to help the sharpness. Starting with the Guardian Rathalos here. We have 220 raw, 15% affinity, also 250 fire, which is nice. We're just into the white sharpness, and then we have the 3-2-1 slots and the built-in skills. We have critical element at 1, which is kind of, well, very meh, but then we have Master's Touch, which is massive for maintaining your sharpness. With just 1 level, it has an 80% chance of no sharpness loss while it's active, and it's active during critical hits. With this setup, you can easily run a proper meta set and reach 100% affinity. Set this up with critical boost and classics like offensive guard and a tiny bit of handicraft if you've got the decorations for it to help maintain that white sharpness, and it'll really go further. By comparison, we have the regular Arkveld Lance. 220 raw, no affinity, a whopping 350 dragon, which is nice, white sharpness, again 3-2-1 slots, and this time we have 3 levels of guard, which is definitely nice, but not relevant for your output at all, certainly not compared to something like offensive guard. So in these decoration slots, you'd be looking to get offensive guard in there, some crit boost, a level of handicraft, and then you'd also benefit from the guard for free. That is by no means bad at all. But if you're thinking about the usual meta set that's going to give you a good 90% affinity, again, that Master's Touch on the Guardian Rathalos is going to be there. You'll easily have 100% affinity. It has 15% affinity base for 1, and then things like corrupted mantle during the fight. That should really reduce the loss of white sharpness. At very least, with 1 level of handicraft, it's 30 hits before you drop into blue, and then you got 100% affinity where, yeah, Master's Touch is going to be working overtime. Very much solid in this context, especially if you got crit boost, making your damage better. So between the 2, I suggest Guardian Rathalos. Alright, next up we have Charge Blade, which is kind of interesting. That's because, of course, with Artian, you're getting so much value out of the raw paralysis or raw blast setups. And if you want to go element, this is going to be incredibly hard to beat. 500 element when you got the perfect rolls, because each boost gives you 50 element. Not really something you're going to be able to go up against with base crafting. So if we think more about raw instead then, we're looking at Guardian Rathalos, which is indeed an impact vial. With this, you actually have 301 effective raw and a bit of fire element on top. It also comes with Master's Touch, which is going to be helpful to help your sharpness, and you'll be able to fit in your decorations artillery and a bit of crit boost for your offensive spots. I do want to at least acknowledge the regular Rathalos too, since it comes with 3 crit boosts built in, which means you've got the slots for sharpness management instead, and you could even push crit boost to level 5. But this provides element vial by comparison, and fire element again, where you know that's going to be more of a problem against monsters resistant to it. So for more of a general use, I go Guardian Rathalos. Moving on, we have switch axe to talk about. For this weapon, we kind of lean on power vials as the vial type. You want to spam full release right, we want to hit that as hard as possible, and we want to do it as back-to-back as possible too. Now obviously the issue with power vials there is that it takes a bit longer to charge it up, get the sword amped, but once you're there, you want to stay there as long as possible anyway, so power prolonger is going to be necessary in whatever setup we use. We're ending up with power vial with our Artian setup, and so for the monster crafting we're aiming for the same. From our look, the best options look to be Rathalos and Guardian Arkveld, both being strong contenders. I remember using the Rathalos switch axe though in Rise, so I was very much leaning on that. Let's compare the two and give you some pros and cons. So like I said, we require power prolonger in whatever setup you're going to be running. Extending how long your sword is amped, that's vital. In the meta Artian set, we're looking to run crit boost at level 3, maybe even 5 if you're willing to give up the sharpness. If not, we've got razor sharp and handicraft there, and then the power prolonger and even more handicraft for the sharpness. Looking at the Rathalos switch axe, it already comes with 3 crit boost, freeing up you that important space on the decoration slot for power prolonger 3. Looking at Guardian Arkveld by comparison, you get 2 level 3 decoration slots to work with, higher raw, but then you do have that minus 10% affinity, and you got the blue sharpness. So to resolve that, you have to use your decorations, meaning you're going to go for power prolonger 3 in one of these, and with another, you're going to make sure you're going to get 3 handicraft, which is pretty aggressive on your decoration economy. Assuming the ideal decoration setup then, your effective raw would be 274 for Rathalos, and higher for Guardian Arkveld at 296. But we got to think a bit further than that. With a classic meta setup, you'd be getting about that 90% affinity, and probably 25 raw on top. The crit boost you get from Rathalos then really starts to show, pushing its effective raw higher than the Guardian Arkveld as you're running a proper set. You're also going to be getting affinity help, unlike Guardian Arkveld, which is going to be negative, reaching towards 100%. So for how you're actually going to be building your set and playing it, the Rathalos will have higher effective raw in the end, and so that's why it's our pick. Next up, we have a pretty quick one. It's Insect Glaive, which is a really awkward one because it's a massive downgrade in general compared to Artian. At best, we were looking at the regular arkveld Insect Glaive and Rathian as well. Arkveld has 220 base raw, no loss on the affinity, 250 dragon, which is nice, the white sharpness, 321 decoration slots, and it comes with power prolonger, which is completely useless for Insect Glaive. The idea of spending your essence and then often quickly refilling it, probably with a focus strike on a wound, you'd have to be playing pretty incorrectly for this power prolonger to matter at all, so that's not ideal. If we take a look at the other option we're talking about, Rathian, you got lower base raw but more affinity to work with. You do benefit from a bit of poison status, 321 decorations, white sharpness, and then not amazing critical status and poison duration up, but it will be relevant for this weapon. There's benefits of the damage over time there. Neither of them are really amazing though, and they're basically the best things we could decide between, so it's very hard to recommend this compared to Artian. But that now brings us to the bowguns, where this gets a lot more difficult considering the mods, ammo types, ammo capacity, and all the elements to consider. So what I'm going to be giving you here is a clear single good option that will work universally compared to the benefits of Artian weapons, which to be fair seem extremely good as usual. Starting with light bowgun, we have the Ray Dow bowgun, which comes with level 3 pierce ammo. This is a pierce build. That's nice again because it'll work against any monster rather than you requiring to swap around based on elements and weaknesses. Naturally, with it being a pierce focused setup, the location you fire through will matter. So the longer the bullets piercing through the target, the better. For the equip mod setup, we'll go with Pierce Ammo Magazine. That's going to give you 1 extra Pierce Ammo capacity, which is very nice. And then Rapid Fire mod. As it says, it improves the recovery speed of your Rapid Fire gauge, which is what you want to be doing as much as possible with the whole burst stepping concept. So it's just a Pierce concept that works really well, that I've actually seen in some speedrun cases, even against Artian. On the other hand, we have Heavy Bowgun. For this one, I've just got a simple normal shot playstyle, and for that we consider the Guardian Arkveld Bowgun as a very good choice. There is a downside in that you have that minus 10% affinity of course, but you do get very high raw and 2 3-slot decorations, which is obviously big. As a bowgun, it comes with normal ammo level 3, which is important for this playstyle. And to help that along, we've got 2 normal ammo magazines to increase that capacity, with Wyvern Heart Ignition for the machine gun style playstyle, and the Wyvern Heart counter for whenever you might need that. On top of all of that, the weapon itself comes with 2 levels of your Tetrad shot, helping at least a little bit with your decoration economy. So with this setup, you just play at critical distance, spamming out Wyvern Heart whenever available. And something that Cotton's been looking into, you could also tank a damage loss for being actively on your seikret while firing with the heavy bowgun. The benefits of that will allow you to move around smoothly during the fight, and also it affects your recoil to help with that too. So quite funny, but also something surprisingly effective beyond the meme. But either way, this setup will allow for a very basic beginner-friendly playstyle, which is something that suits me as someone pretty inexperienced with heavy bowgun. But yeah, there you have it. I did say it'd be a dense one today. I hope that gave you some interesting and useful insight across the board for monster crafted weapons compared to Artian. It does give us a stark indication of how meta they are and why, right? But it's still an interesting journey for me to look through for this video. I hope the general recommendations prove useful to you, but if you guys have any extra insight on any of these specific weapons and comparisons, please let us know in the comments. It's been a lot to cover, we've done our best, but if you know more or have any extra information, it'd be very appreciated. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.